Good evening, everyone. I hope it was beautiful wherever you were today. Let's go ahead and jump into Collectively Rewilding. All right. And all of my toolbars were in very strange places. I must have shut it down for my last class with something weird going on. I don't remember. All right, here we are in Collectively Rewilding. Tonight's class is no longer Gardens and More Q&A. It is Garden Planning Q&A in honor of the fact that we're going to do garden planning as our theme for next year. I was in sort of fiddling with everything to move us forward where we are right now a little bit, and just what would we be doing or what should we be doing for, say, our lawns, right? That's a good thing to be thinking about right now, surprisingly. And I mean, it is and it isn't surprising. It depends on how you think about things, right? A lot of people think about fertilizing in the spring and the summer. However, when you take care of things in the fall with different types of things, whether you're mulching or fertilizing, you've got to continue to water in areas where it's warm. I haven't had to water for a while. It's been cold enough, and we got really good rains for several days as it was cooling off. So everything has just been great here. There was no need to water. And in fact, I need to go and remove the hoses from the outside tonight before I go to bed. I'm not worried about them freezing, but I don't want it to get to the point where I am worried about them freezing. My daughter actually brought up today that she was a little frustrated at how warm it was still, and it is frustrating. I do hope that my alyssum get to go to seed, but I don't want the season to wait. It really should be quite a lot colder. When I was a child in this area, 6 hours away, there was almost always snow at Halloween in my memory. It was very cold. You had to wear a coat, and it was always such a bummer because you wanted to show off your costume. And I just remember that. So, 40 years ago almost, depending on 40 years ago for some of those and a little bit less for the last few. But yeah, big variance in when the true cold settles in from then till now. And so these are some different things that we can be working on this November, or that we can just kind of look at to see what we'll be doing next year, depending on where each of us are. I think this would be a great time for anybody wanting to add any water elements in before the ground gets frozen, while it's still relatively easy to work, if you've been giving it any water, if there was already water there, right? All of those kinds of things. And so we'll add in some information on each of the different types of water structures that we covered quite extensively in what was our organic soil regeneration class, right? And bulb planting, this is absolutely an excellent time to plant bulbs. Dig down about 6 to 8 feet a lot of the time, or 6 to 8 feet, 6 to 8 inches a lot of the time. There are some that are a little more shallow, 3 to 4 inches, and put your bulbs in for the spring. Very good time for that. You can also do the end of your lawn maintenance and care that I was kind of talking about. And then I was running out of some ideas. So what do we do these days? I went to Gemini. I've worked really heavily, primarily with Gemini in the whole process of working inside of Collectively Rewilding since it was barred, right? It's just been a very interesting experience. That's the AI that I do prefer overall. However, because ChatGPT is such a big deal in the other community that so many of us participate in, I'm really beginning to appreciate the strengths there. And I've always utilized Copilot a little bit. I would bounce back and forth between Copilot and Gemini, just utilizing ChatGPT every great once in a while. And now, having been immersed more into ChatGPT, seeing the changes that have taken place in ChatGPT, I also think that's a very good service. I've already built the understanding in Gemini of all the different things that we do here, right? So BARD has been around for quite a while, I believe about 2 years total for the whole BARD to Gemini current. And so this is what was recommended from all the different things that we've talked about inside of collectively rewilding that have gotten discussed in Gemini, and cover crop termination and crimping. Crimping was a new term to me. When you terminate the crop, you're going to till it in. And I just don't agree with tilling, but I do agree with cover crops where applicable. And there are times when tilling can be necessary and beneficial. So don't rule it out entirely. It's just not one of my favorite practices. In fact, it's one of my least favorite garden practices. I didn't use it at all here on this property. Now, we tore up the ground to create the water structures, but the soil to water structures, there was no tilling for the rest of what's going on. Now we are going to be left with what's essentially going to be tilling when we fill back in the pit that was planned for the Walipini, right? That'll essentially be like tilling, or what they call double digging, which is extremely intense tilling, where you're looking at up to 2 feet of manipulation of the soil inside of itself. This is actually 4 feet. So it's going to be extremely friable, which means that it's going to be very loose in texture if it's maintained. And we're actually going to take some of that as a base for some of the other planters. And so on top of what will go back into the pit from the original soil that was dug there, we'll be adding different things. Steer and chicken manure, some compost, some elements that are left over from when we tested out the square foot gardening method and the alternative that we created as CR. But I do agree with Nicole Burke of Gardenary. I really wasn't very satisfied with any of it, though actually the CR mix did better than the square foot gardening mix in my little trial that I ran here. So all really very interesting and definitely worth the experience. And I won't waste those elements. So some of that will be mixed in with all of the different planting structures that are going to be now the examples I'll use when I go out to do garden consulting, right? All right. Insulating with leaf mold. Again, this is something that Nicole Burke recommends against, any kind of non-living mulch. And I've always agreed with living mulch, but I always also utilized actual mulch, right? Ground up hay I've used, leaves, and of course, pine chips. Those are the ones that you get when you get the more manufactured chips, if you don't get the yucky dyed stuff. I also didn't like the redwood. I'm not a big fan of using redwood in general, but it was a natural that I could put, a natural mulch that I could put in the garden. So I tested it and I did not like it. So it really clumps weird and is not, in my opinion, a very good mulch. I much prefer pine. So I apologize, I lost. Oh, so from, hay to leaf mulch to wood mulch, I have always believed in covering the soil as it would be in a forest system or a grass plains system in coastal areas that aren't just pure sand, things of that nature. There's going to be some sort of mulch. Now, a lot of times, especially when you think about coastal, it is living mulch. It isn't so much the forest style or even the grass style of mulch that you see in the forest and the plains. So each different area does have a different preferred pattern. And coming from a mountains and high desert area, I really like mulch on the ground. So what I've decided, I'm going to put in half with mulch and half without, as the living mulch being the only planned covering there, right? I want to try to do that as well as I can, half and half in each different area, so that I can really test out the different methods in true comparable situations. Very interesting. She also doesn't really believe in Hugel Kultur, but from what I understand, she's never lived in the desert, and I just don't think that someone who's never experienced desert can understand really what desert is, as well as only having lived in more tending towards, if not outright, deserts myself. I have a very limited understanding of what it is to have too much water, even for a garden. That's just almost unheard of. Now, a deluge or flooding type of a moment, I can understand too much water in a very concentrated period of time, monsoons, all of these concepts, but not just a lengthy period, an entire season, let's say, of just more water than a garden really prefers. So those two types of climates are so contradictory, right? And I'm not going to stop from using the Hugel Cool Tour in all of the areas that I'm doing. Even though there is that element of decomposition that will steal some nitrogen from the soil, especially with the bigger material, it'll take quite a long time to decompose, and it's going to provide so many different kinds of nutrients that it's well worth it. And so all of these different things are areas that we can discuss as November. So we have 3 further November classes for the year, and this is what I will continue to flesh out for us and work on, clean up, get rid of things that don't work. Like this, I already modified it in one area, but I didn't come in. I just know I'm not talking about burning. Now, you might choose to burn some different things that are positive enough that you could put it in a campfire, in a I can't think, a fire pit, right? In some sort of setting like that to add some ash to your compost. But burning trash is just an idea that I can't even let sit here for half of a moment longer. And I changed this out to, and I changed it out entirely. That's so strange. It must have just been a broad outline, and then we went further with it. So composting for fall, and go further into that. That's just definitely not something that is what I consider a positive thought process at all, really, right? And then tool and infrastructure winterization, with all of these being just outlined here, maybe a little bit differently worded, which can actually sometimes spark all kinds of different thoughts. So any thoughts on what the overall November structure is in thinking about what anybody is doing on their particular part of the planet? And then it's silence, right? All right, so November is not the most enjoyable gardening month. I do think, though, that being outside is something I enjoy even more than really any other time at this time of year. If it were the cooler part of the season that it should be, not quite as much, but even then still, I just think it's a beautiful time of year. And so I definitely have plans to get out there. We have the amaranth that actually came up, and I'm going to take the seeds from that and spread it all throughout that particular swale, the one that runs basically east to west. And the clover on the far western side has just completely overtaken the end of the berm. I'm so excited about that. It's just this fabulous patch of clover that's covering the entire berm on the end of that swale. And alyssum just fills the entire patch. There are pot marigolds all over. A few cosmos made it, but most of the cosmos have frozen. There's one ideal location right over here on the western, oh, I guess this is it. Excuse me, I said the directions wrong. On the eastern side, the clover, right? And it does run east to west, but it's the eastern side that has the clover. I think I might have misspoken at some point in there. Anyway, this sunken garden over here, one area gets enough sunlight both in the afternoon and in the morning that it's still got some cosmos that are blooming. So that's definitely some knowledge that I'm going to take advantage of next year in planning out what I want to go further in the season, right? So that's really fun. Those late late summer, early fall, or cool weather crops, some cucumbers perhaps, or some kales or Brussels sprouts, right? I don't really like kale. None of us really like kale, but we like Brussels sprouts and they love cucumbers. I'm more of a zucchini kind of a girl myself. I know most people don't eat zucchini raw, but I think it tastes so good. And zucchini bread, oh my goodness, it's just wonderful. And so I really feel like when you think about it, there's just so much that can be done still at this time of year. This is when we're going to overseed and once again fertilize the whole yard, essentially. We were going to put grass and clover on the side yard. Now we're just going to put clover because we're going to put in those planters that initially we were going to wait for a period to do. We're going to go ahead and put those planters in. So we're just going to put clover over there, no grass. And we will put clover and grass in the front yard and just clover again on the backyard, and put down that fertilizer over the whole area. Just the broken down seaweed fertilizer though, the seaweed wrap, right? Not the urea, not the natural urea, because that will force germination of the grass seed almost no matter when we put it down. The soil temperatures can get over 40 degrees almost year round, depending on the season in this area. There will be patches of green grass year round. It's wild. So it's too warm in the coldest part of the year here to allow for the really powerful fertilization properties in the natural urea. It will force germination of especially the grass and probably the clover as well. So instead, put down the seaweed fertilizer and then let that dry. Put down the seed of both types depending on what area it is. And that's just going to be glorious next year. Now, when I say that I'm going to split between living mulch and living mulch alongside physical wood chip mulch, I don't mean as far as the soil that we brought life back to here in the back with that wood chip mulch. That's the actual backyard structure for the overall ground. And I'm still very happy that we put that mulch down because it created a complete living cover of that so-called living mulch by putting that down on the essentially dead dirt that it was. There was very, very few small hints of life throughout the area. And so what it is now is flourishing with life. And that's not going to be, for the most part, where we directly put our plants, with the exception of along the berm and the sunken garden and the berm that's along the back here without a swale. We will also be putting in things like asparagus and strawberries, along with the alyssum and amaranth in the swale that runs east to west. This swale over here, we're going to be basically starting from scratch, as well as the bund, because they've been kind of neglected, being pressed right up to the mound of dirt that was from the intended Walipini, right? So lots to still do, utilizing the smallest mini X that we can get and push all that dirt in, moving it around, starting in on building those planters. And so the next stage that I have to remember to do is get a quote for one of these mini excavators. They don't list the price, you have to get a quote. And that's just so frustrating. Why can't you just let me do the math myself and then I will tell you what I need? It's just quite silly. So any thoughts, questions before we set it down? Everybody's been so quiet.
Then it annoys me.
I don't have any questions, Sabrina. I'm just listening and my husband's talking, so that's why I haven't said anything. Yeah, he was talking to me.
Thank you, Tammy. Did you have something to say as well, Candace? Did I hear you? I think I heard Candace. Nope, Candace wasn't here. It must have been Daryl then. I heard it in the background.
Yeah, it
It
was
sounds,
Daryl.
wow, he must have been right close or something because that's not what he normally sounds like when you guys are talking, but he wasn't having to project his volume. So it sounded totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's him.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's him, all right, for sure. Yeah, honey, they said that you have Sabrina says your voice sounds different because you sounded like right here. You sound different.
Oh yeah, because I'm walking around. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's
No,
walking.
no,
Because
no
it,
apologies.
I was just telling her what annoys me about my pants. I'm sorry.
Oh, you guys are silly. All right. Well, it sounds like everybody's kind of just taking it in. No real big thoughts. I think that with what everybody has had going on as a community, this is more of a preparation in our minds of what next year could look like, right? There are definitely things that some of us can do, and then some of us have already done what we can, like Miss Vanessa, who is here with us tonight, where she moved her plants inside. And so sorry it didn't get you guys quite as excited as I got in preparing everything. Cause I'm thinking like, okay, this and that I can do, or no, that one's gonna have to wait. But I just love thinking about being out there. And I actually intended to spread the amaranth seed today, but I got busy and got distracted. So I'll definitely get that done between now and the weekend. So looking forward to doing what can be done at this time of year, and perhaps talking about this will inspire some of you to a few other things that you can do outside at this time of year. And what do you guys think of the new imagery for the Q&A tonight?
I love it, Sabrina.
Fun, isn't it? I love the new colors that Julia May brought into the community. It really makes it fun to play with, right? And so, yeah, thanks you guys. And thank you, Miss Julia, though you can't really hear us as she's still sleeping over there in Belgium. It's about 8 hours ahead for her right now from wherever any of you are. So still probably just sleeping. I love how many different people, you know, when I talk about the fact that we do have someone from Canada and someone from India, I don't think about the fact that, of course, we also have someone from Belgium already in the community because she helps us get all of this done from all the way over in Belgium. All right, jumping into the CR calendar, you have tomorrow the makeup class. No, wait, excuse me, I apologize. It's Friday. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't think it was tomorrow. It's not. It's this Saturday, November 8th, a makeup class for Let's Quit Together because I had to go to the dentist on Tuesday. Not a ton of fun, but I'll tell you what, this is my best dentist experience since I was a child, and my dentist was Dr. Dr. Roberts, right? Yeah, that's the song, Dr. Roberts. And he would always whistle while he worked. And so as a child, of course, that soothed me and made me feel a lot more comfortable. And then learning the Beatles song, and just a great all around childhood exposure to dentistry for sure. And then now every different kind of experience that we've had here in Tooele has just been wonderful as a contrast to a lot of our experiences over in the Salt Lake Valley. So props to Tooele, though other people pick on it here in Utah. I'm going to say I love it. And I hope to see you guys all on Saturday, this November 8th. That will be Let's Quit Together at 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 2 o'clock p.m. Mountain, 3 o'clock p.m. Central, and 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern. All right, everybody. Oh, and then also don't forget, we do have action plan for your nonprofit over in Lesko Help too. And it is so much fun to listen to all the different things Megan has planned for us as far as getting the Collectively Rewilding Foundation going. And so that will be tomorrow in Let's Go Help 2 at 2:30 p.m. Pacific 3:30 Mountain, 4:30 Central, and 5:30 Eastern. All right, guys, please feel free to unmute and say goodnight.
Buenos noches. I'll see you mañana,
Good
everybody.
night.
Good night,
Good
guys. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.